I'm Ethan Weinog, a freshman at the University of Minnesota, and today I will be discussing natural selection. Now, first of all, we have to describe what natural selection is. Natural selection describes how evolution occurs. It's an environmental process, and it was brought about by Charles Darwin, who observed Galapagos finches and came up with the idea of descent with modification, which helps out with his natural selection theory. There are 4 conditions that must be met for natural selection to occur. First off, there must be varying traits. Those traits have to be heritable. There need to be more offspring produced than can actually survive in the wilderness, and the traits must have varying fitness so that they can select for those traits. If these conditions are met, the better traits are passed on to the offspring. The traits become more prevalent in the population, and the population changes toward those better traits. Now, there are 3 types of natural selection, and those 3 types are directional, stabilizing, and disruptive selection. Directional selection is when an average phenotype changes in one direction or the other, depending on the environmental forces acting upon the trait. And overall, the genetic variation of the population is reduced when this occurs. There was a study done on cliff swallows when there was a cold snap in North Dakota, and 1,853 of these finches died. Of these swallows died. The survivors, they found, were larger than the ones who had died because they were able to better catch their prey of insects in this cold snap. Now, the average size of these swallows is larger than before. The second is stabilizing selection. Stabilizing selection selects for traits that are more toward the middle of the bell curve of traits, and it reduces the amount of variation in the trait. For example, when you look at mortality rates versus birth rates in infants, the larger or smaller the infant is on the scale, the less likely they are to survive. However, in the middle of the scale, at around 7 or 8 pounds, the infant is more likely to survive, and over time, the birth rates have shown that the infants are often born at this size, and thus it has stabilized to this one trait and made the genetic variation much smaller. The last is disruptive selection. Disruptive selection eliminates the phenotypes near the average and actually selects for the extreme trait values that are on the opposite sides of the spectrum. For example, the black-bellied seed crackers are a type of bird that have only large and small seeds available to them in their environment. They also only have small and large beaks that have been found, and there are very few medium beaks. This is because the medium beaks can't crack open the small nuts or the large nuts and therefore die off. So, yeah.